So there's a story about a couple from Minnesota, and they were experiencing a very cold and dreary winter, and so they decided, well, why don't we come down to Florida to experience some good weather? And they said, well, why don't we see if we can stay at the hotel where we honeymooned 20 years earlier? So they made the arrangements. The only little hiccup was the fact that they couldn't get on the same flight. And so they agreed that the husband was going to travel down to Florida on Thursday, and then on the next day, on Friday, the wife would follow. And so the husband arrives safely, he goes to the hotel, he checks in, and he decides to send his wife an email, letting her know that he arrived safely. Well, he inadvertently made a very small mistake. He left out a letter in her email address. So this email went to somebody else. Now, the recipient of the email was a woman in Houston, Texas, who earlier that morning had buried her husband.
What?
Her husband was a minister. And in the evening, she said, well, let me check my email because I'm expecting that some friends and family who were not able to attend the funeral might be sending me some words of condolence and encouragement. Well, needless to say, when she opened up the first email, she fainted. And her son ran into the room to discover her. She was okay. But he looked at the computer screen, and this is the email that he found. To my loving wife, I've arrived. I know you're surprised to hear from me. They have computers here now, and you are allowed to send emails to your loved ones. I've just arrived and been checked in. I see that everything has been prepared for your arrival tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you then. Hope your journey is as uneventful as mine was. P.S. Mine was. P.S. It sure is hot down here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Wasn't that one funny? Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Happy Sunday, everyone. I am so happy to be here. I like to come on at 2 p.m., but unfortunately, because I'm loading up some information on this site, so I can get it to you. I, of course, a bit, kind of late, but kind of early as well. Yes, because it's at 10 o'clock at night and it's not 8 a.m. in the morning. So welcome, everyone. How have you all been doing? How was your weekend? Great? Yes? Wonderful. All right. So I have what I hope is an interesting program lined up for you. You know that when you're at Jamaica 411, you're bound to learn something or look at something in a slightly different way than, you may have been looking at it. Now, I've been talking about the Auditor-General's report, but only in a glance, just a glance. But I'll also be talking about the comparison between the NARA bill and another bill that was put into the parliament and passed. Except this bill, the National Risk Management Act of 2015. And guess who was the Minister of Justice at the time, who would have been responsible for the drafting of this bill? Can you guess? Yes, the bill was passed February of 2015. Which government was there? PNP. And who was the Minister of Justice? Mark Golding. So we're going to be looking at that act and looking at the NARA bill that was passed in the Parliament, not yet law, until it receives the royal assent, which means the Governor-General sign off, and then it goes to the Jamaica Printing Office, where it is gazetted. Once it's gazetted, and the minister says when the act will come into force, that is when it becomes an act. So it changes from a bill to an act, and it's the law that is enforceable. Yes, ma'am. And you're going to see something very interesting about this act. No, I'm not going to spend another 2 hours like near the last time, right? So I am going to try and, because I had a whole more things to talk about, yes, man. You see that Nikisha Burchell, that attention seeker, and the patois business. Yes, I'm going to see if I can bring it for you tomorrow. After I do sometime, I do these videos and lives, me get tired. So even though I have all these intentions, me have to do a little pausing. Yes, man. It will probably work in it, as you can imagine. Yes. So, but when I bring you my view on Nikisha Burchell, side chick Nick, electric breasts, all kind of names that we give her in fun, of course. You're going to, if you have not noticed, you're certainly going to notice when I bring it to your attention. Yes. So, but that is for another time. So I'm going to now bring you my. I am now going to take a look at the NARA bill and compare it to the other bill. Yes, the other act. Now, let's see now. Tell me if you're hearing an echo. Are you hearing an echo? Any echo? All right, let's see. No echo. Wonderful. And you're hearing me clearly. All right. So, this now is the NARA bill. And this particular bill, I am going to have to bring it a little closer. And this particular bill is called, I'm going to get close to it. Let's see, it's called An Act to Repeal the Disaster Prepared. Hold on a second. It says An Act to Repeal the Disaster Prepared. An Act to Repeal the Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management Act, and to make new provisions for the management and mitigation of disaster. It says the reduction of risks associated with disaster and for connected matters. Now, it's very fine print from where I'm sitting. So I hope you heard all of that. Alka Fitzenley reminded them about that bill of 2015. Even Prime Minister Holness reminded them about that bill when they put politics aside and supported their bill because it was meant for the country. Well, that is not the point we're trying to make, Mr. Donovan. How are you doing, sir? Yes, let me heal up everybody before Mr. Lola. My darling Lola, how are you? You good? And there's Lisa Hall and Jam Gran. Welcome, Jam Gran. And unless you change your name, I think it's the first time seeing you. Beverly Clark, a staple. Nicola Walters, yes, man. You and Lorna Williams. Marjorie Gordon, hello, good evening to you. I see a new face here, sort of. Jamaica 2341. Then there is Derek Isaacs. Hi, Derek, and welcome Jamaica 2341. Janet Ellis. Hi, good evening to you too. And there is Marjorie Gordon. PNP of wickedness. So the PNP says the same thing about JLP though. Let us look at ourselves as Jamaicans with a different point of view. No matter much up one another so much. And then there's Albert Lewis and Christine Reed, Albert again. Marva, how you do, my dearest? Yes. And Evertine Cole. Hi, Evertine. Welcome. First time seeing you. You might have a different name. Maybe it's the first time. Shia. Lord Shia, long time in a see you, man. Joan Anglin. And then there is Maxine Anderson. Good evening to you, my darlings. And the Mux. Yes, man, a staple. And then there is Shelley Ann Hall, Reginald Banks, and now the phone name now come, you'll get no trouble. Winsome, Nemhard Shaw, and Michael. Is it Michael Wallace? Yes, Prudence. How are you, my darling? You're going to vex with me and never come back if me not come. I'm going to give a special hello. A pleasant Sunday to you too, my dearest. And there is Richard Palmer. Hi, Richard. And A. Hutchinson. Yes, man. A. Hutchinson, you look like you're the first to comment, man. And I think that there are others on the other side. You know, you have other side. And then there is Mr. Vegas. How you do, my dear? And Rick Jam. I will come back to everybody who come in on now. I see Gwendolyn, Lloyd Riley, Cheryl Hamilton. Good evening, all of you. And let us now begin. So, here we are now. We are moving now to the next page. And it says, taking off my glasses, it says, now this now is the Office of Disaster Preparedness Emergency Management. So this was the establishment of the office. So whenever you see in the act, it says the office, you know it's the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. And whenever you hear the authority, you will know that what we're talking about now is the NARA bill. And this act, it says, there is hereby established for the purposes of this act, a body to be called the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, which shall be a body corporate. So like NARA, ODPEM is a body corporate registered under the Companies Act. And so the operations of the Companies Act will apply to it as well, to which the provisions of Section 28 of the Interpretation Act shall apply. Now remember, Mark Golding liked to take credit for whatever act that is put in place, right? That he happened to have piloted or happened to have been the minister at the time. He liked to take credit of him on. So this act is his act. He can't separate himself from it. And I'm going to make some serious points shortly. It went on to say at 3.2, there shall be a board of management of the office. So they are going to be calling ODPEM the office from now on. And the provisions of the first schedule shall have effect as to the constitution of the board and otherwise in relation thereto. So I can tell you from now, the board comprises the minister, which in this case is the prime minister, and let's see now, it's the minister, I think it's the JDF chief of staff, as well as the police commissioner. They are supposed to be 7 to 14 members of that board. I'm going to skip out a little. I hear my little cousin coming. Yes, he's a very talkative little man, you know. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. And so 7 to 14 members, and it's the minister that appoints them. Now, let us now move on to the next slide. Now, you remember there was a lot of hue and cry about the fact that it is the prime minister that is going to appoint the chief executive officer for NARA. You remember that? Oh, concentration of power, and why is it that the prime minister has to appoint? Well, let us read what it says for NARA, and then we're going to see what it was that Mark Golding had in his act in 2015, which is a Disaster Risk Management Act. Okay, so this is a NARA bill now at Clause 5, or what should soon be Section 5, appointment of chief executive officer and other employees. It says, for the due administration of the authority, there shall be a chief executive officer appointed by the prime minister by instrument in writing. So the chief executive officer, who is going to be representing the authority, is supposed to be appointed by the prime minister. You hear that? Good. It went on to say, subject to subsection 5, the chief executive officer shall be employed at such remuneration and on such terms and conditions as the minister thinks fit. As the minister thinks fit. You see the language? This is NARA. Let us now look at what let me get the name of this act. It is the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015, which would have been Mark Golding's act. It says, the chief executive officer, I think I skipped. Let's go back. Yes, right. Now, it went on to say, under the NARA bill, that the chief executive officer shall act on behalf of the authority, right? And be responsible for the day-to-day management of the authority. It went on to say, subject to subsection 5, the authority itself, which the CEO represents, may appoint and employ at such remuneration and on such terms and conditions as it thinks fit, that is the authority, such other employees and agents as it thinks necessary for the proper carrying out of the provisions of the Act. This is NARA. This now is Section 7 of the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015. And it says in the margin, appointment of Director General and other officers. So the person who is responsible for the day-to-day running of NARA will be the Chief Executive Officer. That will be his title. The person that is responsible for the day-to-day running of the ODPEM, that is a Director General, right? So who now appoints the Director General in Mark Golding's Act? Section 7 says, the minister shall appoint a Director General for the office. Who is a minister? The Prime Minister. So in Mark Golding's Act, it says here, even though there is a board, it is not the board, it is not the Services Commission, it is not the Governor General who is supposed to appoint the Director General. It is the minister, and this is Mark Golding's Act, the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015. So why was he in our parliament creating all this excitement? Is it that he had a lapse of memory? Is it a lapse of memory, or is it something else going on? What you think going on? You think you never remember? Tell me in the comment section, man. I have my phone here reading. Is this a lapse of memory? Is it that he forgot that under the Portia Simpson Miller administration, and remember, this act repealed the old act. Now, the old act, I believe, may have been passed in the 70s, I understand. And we know that PGA was the one either renamed the disaster and called it ODPEM, right? They went, clearly, there must have been faults with the act that was there in terms of what it is that the authority was enacted to do, and so they decided to reword it and reworked it into this particular act called the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015. It's supposed to be an improvement, you would think. And here it is that he is saying that it is a minister, Portia, if not Portia, some other minister, right, shall appoint a Director General for the office. What else did it say? At 7.2 it said, the Director General shall be in charge of the day-to-day management and operations of the office, and the Director General shall report directly to the board. So the minister appoints, and then the Director General is supposed to report to the board. So the board set out its policy, and then him supposed to carry it out, and him a run the whole show. But look at something here. This is Mark Golding's Act. Now, this now is Section 7 again, and it says, the board now may appoint and employ at such remuneration and on such terms and conditions as it thinks fit such officers and other employees or agents. So it's exact wording. All that has changed is that because the ODPEM has a board, it is a board that does the appointment. NARA does not have a board. So it's a CEO acting on behalf of the authority, which is going to have people in it, apart from the CEO, that is going to make the appointments, new appointments, right? Good. Now, look at what else Mark Golding's Act said at Section 9 of the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015. It says, remember it said before, that the Director General is supposed to report to the board. But look at what it says here. The Director General shall, as the need arises, report to the Minister on the exercise of the functions conferred upon him under this Act and any other matter requested by the Minister as information which the Minister considers necessary. Now, let me ask you a question. Now, who the man supposed to report to? Not the board. So this is saying that the Minister can bypass the board and go straight to the CEO and have a little tete-a-tete with him about, man, how the thing about, where you're going with. And him say, well, me I do this and me I do that and all of them things and so on and so forth. Except it does not say here what precisely it is that the minister would like to chat to this man about, bypassing the board. So this act seems to be a little bit confused, like the man who would have drafted it, and nobody apparently seems to notice that the man is reporting to the board, but at the same time, he is obliged by law, as the need arises, to report to the minister about his own function and about any other matter that the minister wants to chat to him about, right? So that is Mark Golding's Act. Let us look now and see what's next. Now, it says here, accounts and audit. Now, you remember there was a hue and cry about the fact that it is the CEO that will be appointing an auditor, external auditor, to produce annual audits for for NARA. It says, what NARA says is that, this is a NARA, it says, the authority shall keep proper accounts and other records in relation to its function and shall prepare annually a statement of accounts in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles promulgated from time to time by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica, and such accounts shall be audited annually by an auditor appointed in each year by the Chief Executive Officer with the approval of the Cabinet Secretary. So him not just going just say, all right, I want Ernst and Young, or I want Pete Marwick, or I want what's the other one called? Price Waterhouse. Once him decide on, I guess him going to send out him request for quotation, and then send the quotation and him pick one, then it is the Cabinet Secretary, whom I believe is Rocky Mead, right, is going to approve it. Him select, somebody else approve. And a statement of the account so audited shall form part of the annual report submitted pursuant to Section 11. And what I understand Section 11 to say is that the authority is supposed to prepare an annual report, just like the Auditor-General and the Integrity Commission, they produce annual reports. In addition to that, they are supposed to prepare financial statements, right, about how them spending the money and a balance sheet. And in addition to that, they are supposed to get those statements that they prepare, so they must keep proper accounts. Remember, I told you everything about business and government is about accounting, not accountability that you hear them talking about. You hear them talking about accountability, it is accounting. the debit and the credit, and the thing must balance, and all them sitting there, and they must know whether or not them overspending or them underspending, and all them things there, right? Good. So, um, having prepared those financial statements, they now need to go get an auditor, external auditor, to come in and audit the account, and then look for specific things. And what the external auditor does is verify. They're supposed to be independent of the financial controller, and the internal auditor then would have, I suppose, be part of the process of preparing the statement. I think it's the financial controller that's responsible. And then now the external auditor come in and verify that what is in the financial statements is true and correct. I do believe that that is how this thing work. Yes, man. So that is the purpose. When all of that is done, the authority is supposed to hand to the minister all of those. And the minister is then going to take it to the parliament and have it tabled in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, right? So that all of we now can see what them are going with. Yes, yes, man. So it worked. And that is now how the transparency and accountability come into it. When those accounts are produced. Good. So it went on to say, so this is the process. Now I want you to look now at 4 at the bottom. It says the Auditor-General shall be entitled at all times to examine the accounts and other records in relation to the authority. Now, you remember the young fellow in the Senate wanted an elaborate change to be made to the NARA bill, removing the external auditor, and instead, the Auditor General is supposed to do the audit of NARA, right? There is nothing in the law that says the Auditor General cannot audit. Matter of fact, it is here. She can walk in and decide she's going to do an audit. If she, decide that this is what needs to be done, or Parliament ask her to go and audit, or, something to that effect. So, this is a narrow bill. Accounts must be produced and tabled in the Parliament. External auditor is to produce a report, table in Parliament, and the Auditor General can go in and audit as well and do a performance audit. Yes. What it is that Mark Golding's Act says. Let's see. It says here at section 12 of the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015, it says, having said the same thing that was said in NARA, them produce annual reports and financial statements that is supposed to be audited and tabled in Parliament. It says, the accounts of the office, that is ODPEM, shall be audited annually by an auditor appointed by the board, not by the CEO, by the board, and approved by the minister. Who appoints the board? The minister. And who is going to approve the auditor? That is selected by the board, the minister. And then it goes on to say, for the Auditor General may at any time examine and report on the accounts of the office. Same exact wording, right? So what was the excitement about? The fact that the CEO is the one that is going to select the auditor. So hold on, when them take auditors for them things the auditors going to come in and just sign up on something and go lose their license if another auditor come in. That's how it works. An auditor is an auditor, an independent person that comes in and they're supposed to verify the accounts. That's my understanding of what they do. So what was the hue and cry about? The minister is appointing the CEO, and the CEO is the one that will be appointing selecting, will be selecting the auditor, and the auditor now will be approved by the cabinet minister, right? Now, that is one thing that is also in the other act. Lapse of memory as well. Let's see what's next. Now, who remember when it came to the funding of the authority? Mark Golding, in his 40 minutes of, going through the act or going through the bill, clause by clause, said to the Prime Minister when he read the section, Prime Minister, I suppose that this means that I suppose that this means that NARA will be allocated funds from the consolidated fund, and that is going to be budgeted. And the Prime Minister said yes. That's what I'm saying. You remember that? You remember when he said it? Well, I suppose that this means that the funds for the authority is going to be coming from out of the national budget. Words to that effect. You remember that? No. Listen to what NARA. This is NARA. The funds of the authority shall consist of such monies as may from time to time be placed at its disposal for the purposes of this act by Parliament. All other monies and other property which may in any manner become payable to or vested in the authority in respect of any matter incident. So it says that such money as may from time to time be placed at its disposal for the purposes of this act by Parliament. So that is when the money is allocated and voted on a year time. Good. Mark Golding was very much confused, never understood what this meant in the act. Let us look now at what he has in his act, the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015. It says, I do believe that this is 11. I kind of cover it up, but never mind. It says, the funds and resources of the office, that's ODPEN, shall consist of such sums as may from time to time be placed at its disposal by Parliament. Exact word. So why was Mark Golding so confused? I don't get it. The man he has been in the Senate from 2007. He has been a legislator. Here, Cliff Hughes is a fabulous legislator. And I don't know what happened to him that day. Maybe he had a drink or something. I don't know. Might be too strong for him, whatever that was. Or him just had a lapse of memory. And he was temporarily confused by the wording of the NARA bill. And here it is in the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015 that he himself would have seen, understood, put before the Parliament for it to be passed. The very same wording. It went on to say at B, any other monies and other property which may in any manner become payable or be vested in the office in respect of any matter incidental to its functions. Almost the same wording, meaning the same thing. So what was the cause of his confusion? What's going on with Mark Golding? Can somebody tell me? I don't get it. And yet him raise it in the Parliament as if there is something wrong with it. And then him say, Prime Minister, I suppose this is, and the Prime Minister say yes. Right? And there it is in their own act. As a matter of fact, every act that is set up like this, that where monies are to be funded, it comes out of either the fees that they charge or from the consolidated fund, which is the government, central government account, right? It becomes a line item in that budget. And the money, they say how much money they want to run them operation. You have the recurrent expenses, and then the capital expenditure. They request it, and if the money is there, then get it. The Minister of Finance duty is to go find the money for them, right? Yes. Now, so that now is another confusion that we clear up for him. By the way, anybody see him? I saw him at Webster's Church this morning. He's a smile, so I don't know what it's sweeting. Maybe I'm having one of those moments. But if you don't see him, send him this video for me, please. Because I know, some risers are over here. And so send it to him because he seemed to have been momentarily confused about certain things that is law, that is and has been in law from ever since, right? Now, let's see what's next. So here now we are at 13. That would be in the NARA bill. And we're talking about directions to authority. I think there was some amount of confusion. Persons were a touch confused, yes, the risers, as to why it is that the minister should be giving directions to not to the authority. No man, someone you got thief. Well, make we find out, right? If it is unusual. Hmm? Now it says the minister may give directions to the authority. Directions under section 1, subsection 1. Let me repeat that. The minister may give directions to the authority. At 2, it says directions under subsection 1, right? The directions to the authority shall be such as appear to the minister to be desirable in the interest of the effective performance by the authority of its functions. It went on to say to ensure that approved reconstruction and resilience projects and designated strategic investment projects are implemented in accordance with the terms of the Cabinet's approval and in the public interest. Now, whole heap of words that. What is it saying? It first of all controls, even though it says the minister can give the authority direction, it can go to the authority and give them any and any direction. The words that follow actually restricts what kind of direction the minister can give to the authority. And when it says in the public interest, that of course is subjective. It is the person who would, determine, the minister, what is in the public interest and what may be in the public interest in his case, in his thinking. Other people may have a different opinion. But this law actually says more. It says that the directions that the minister can give to the authority is in the interest of the effective performance by the authority of its functions. So the minister may have an opinion as to how it is they may carry out their functions more effective. And then he can give them direction to that. Him not going to just call them and just say, man, this is what you do. Then go and sit down and discuss it. How you do so and so and so. And him say so and so. And then the minister said, well, what if you do so and so? And him said, let me think about it. And he'll probably go away and come back and say, yes, everybody say, I think it could work that way. And then he'll write it down and give it to him as an instruction, right? And that now is what them follow. Now, and it has to do with the performance. Not for him to say to them, go and go buy take some of the money, go buy Mona Lisa. Right? No, not really them performance. Or go buy some, well, I mean, if they need more office space, yes. But that is not what it's talking about. I'm not telling you to go buy a dog, a puppy, or a puss. Right? Then it says that the directions that the minister can give to the authority, it says, shall be such as appear to the minister to be desirable to ensure that approved construction and resilience projects and designated strategic investment projects are implemented in accordance with the terms of the Cabinet's approval and in the public interest. In other words, the minister to whom the CEO is reporting, it has to make sure that whatever instruction, according to NARA, whatever instruction, whatever decision was made by cabinet about projects, the minister is to make sure that it is carried out. So the direction that this allows the minister, the prime minister, to give to the authority is pertaining to the carrying out of the information, carrying out of the decisions and the approvals of the cabinet. So it restricts him as to what it is he can do. Good. Now, I want you to pay now attention to Mark Golding's act. It says power of the minister to issue general directions on matters of policy. Policy. Listen to what it says. The minister, who is the prime minister, the minister may, after consultation with the chairman of ODPEM, give to the office such directions of a general character as to the policy to be followed by the office in the discharge of its functions as appear to the minister to be necessary in the public interest. So here's a problem. There is no mention whatsoever of the cabinet. It speaks to policy, but whose policy? Does this constrain the minister from going off on a frolic of his own and institute his own policy? It gives him freedom to do so. There's no mention of cabinet. Secondly, all the minister has to say, if it all comes crashing down on him, is that he is of the opinion that the instruction of a general nature and policy that he gave to ODPEM, right, was in the public interest. That is his subjective view. Other people may not agree that the position that he has taken is in the public interest. So this act that is in the disaster management, what's it called? Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015 is a careless piece of section. It's a careless section in the act, in my view, because it does not constrain the minister at all, except to say it's policy. But whose policy? He never said. When you look at the NARA Act at 13, right, it constrains the prime minister as to what kind of instruction he can give to NARA. So this is a superior act in this respect, in any event, than what it is that Mark Golding created in 2015. Tell me if you agree, tell me if you disagree, and tell me the reason why. I'm not afraid, no risers. Come on, and make no comment. Yes, man, we must have a discussion. Yes, we can agree to disagree, but at the same time, we want to hear what you have to say about it. Now, so this now is where NARA, in my view, has a superior framework in which a prime minister is working in. The legal draftsman created this, right? So this now is a check and balance. He can't instruct them to do anything that is not going to improve their performance, and he cannot ask them to do anything that was not approved by cabinet. That is the long and short of what Section 13 of NARA is saying. Follow? Yes, man. Now, let's go and look now. Now, it says, indemnification of the chief executive officer. As to what I forgot to look up the difference between immunity and indemnification. I don't know if there's much of a difference. Maybe there is, but it has the same effect as far as I understand it. Now, you would have heard Side Chick Nikisha Burchell, in her video when she was belittling and ridiculing the Mace, talking about the reason why them have to protest is because NARA is kind of what you basically saying, it's top heavy. There is a concentration of power, and the CEO can be arrested, he can lock up because them indemnify him, right? So if him do something wrong, no prison for him. That's what she said. You remember that? Yes, man. And I'm going to bring it. I'm going to bring it at a later date again. Now, let us see now what it is that NARA says at Section 15. Pardon me. It says, except in respect of an action by or on behalf of the authority to obtain a judgment in its favor, the authority may indemnify the chief executive officer or an employee of the authority or a person who was formerly the chief executive officer or an employee of the authority against all costs, charges, and expenses reasonably incurred by that person in respect of any civil, criminal, or administrative action or proceeding to which that person is made a party by reason of being or having been the chief executive officer or an employee of the authority. So, what is that saying? From time to time, things happen, and they need to sue the authority. Remember now, the authority is a body corporate. It can sue and it can be sued, but you can't sue the authority just so, or you can't sue a company just so, because the company and the authority are not living people, right? You have to sue somebody, and usually it is the person who is the CEO, managing director, whatever you call them, the one that is running the day-to-day affairs, and whichever of the other employee that may have, you know, the person who is suing feel that they're liable to, them did something wrong to injure them rights, and so them suing. They're saying whether the CEO is present or a former CEO, you can leave and then the lawsuit carry on. They are indemnifying that person. But is it a wide scale indemnity against the cost? They mean to say that if they incur cost, expenses, or they are fined, the authority will take up the slack. Here's what it says. At 2, subsection 1, which is what I just read to you, does not apply unless the chief executive officer or employee of the authority to be so indemnified, A, acted honestly and in good faith. So they're not going to be indemnified if the court, and the court will make this decision, if the court found that they acted in bad faith. Once the judge made that ruling, and them have to go find their own money and pay the lawyer fee and all charges and expenses. And if they are fined and then to go to prison, so be it. This does not indemnify them from anything that they have done wrong, knowing that what they were doing was wrong. You follow? Yes. It goes on to say that, the section does not apply unless the chief executive officer or employee of the authority to be indemnified in the case of criminal or administrative action or proceeding that was enforced by a monetary penalty, had reasonable grounds for believing that his conduct was lawful. Now, if the judge make a determination that there is no way you could have possibly think that what you were doing was right, or I suppose what they did, I mean, for example, if the attorney warn them and tell them, say, well, you're doing not right, and they're going to do it anyway, in that case, them going to pay the lawyer fee, the expenses, charges, and any fine that may be levied on them. So the indemnity is only if they had acted honestly and in good faith, or if there is a criminal charge, if they had reasonable grounds for believing that what they were doing was correct, was lawful. That's what that says. Right? No big deal. Every single act that is written that employs a CEO, a board, anybody at all, including the employees, this is written into the law. This is not unusual. But Nikisha Burchell is a little flyby deal, pitch night miss. She don't know nothing. People when I know nothing, and instead of them go find out, them go to run them out because them think that there are people out there dumber than them. Yes, I see that. Let us now look at what the Mark Golding's Act said. The Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015 that was passed in the House by 42 PNP members. I don't know how the JLP then would vote, but here is what it says. Director General, which is circled, it says in the margin, Director Generals and authorized officers immunity. It says, the Director General or an authorized officer shall not be liable for any act done by him in good faith in the execution of the function under this act. So as long as him are doing work and him do it according to the act, if it turn out that what he did following the act is illegal, they're going to indemnify him because him have every reason to believe that what he was doing was lawful. You follow? After this now, if the court make a decision and say what you were doing is wrong, him supposed to change him ways and don't follow the act. He must follow what the court say because the court now is the final arbiter when it comes to interpreting the law. If him decide say he not listen to no judge, law say and him go do it and then carry him back a court, for him problem that no. You understand? That would be bad faith, right? Good. So here it is in the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015, immunity to the Director General and an authorized officer. I don't know what happened to all them, the people who work other than them that they might not pursue, right? But it is right there. So somebody kindly send this to Nikisha Burchell and give her the timestamp. What is the timestamp? When you see the timestamp, what time it is though? Yes, give her the timestamp and tell her so she must come and educate herself on this matter. This is natural law, right? She can go and ask, well, don't ask Mark Golding, go and ask people like Tony Hilton, right? Or can go and ask Warmy, if one she and Warmy a good friend. Yes, my Warmy know everything, him a lawyer, but Tony Hilton we know these things. No matter with Paul Well, he no know nothing. I mean, if Paul Well in the PMP for 25 years and never read the Constitution and know that you cannot be a member of the People's National Party unless you subscribe to democratic socialism, the programs and policies of the party, right? If you say you are a communist or capitalist, that's an expellable offense. You're not a socialist, democratic socialist, right? You never know that. So don't go to Paul and ask him nothing. Don't go ask Mark nothing. Go ask Tony Hilton. Tony will surely tell you how it goes. Yes. Now, so we clear up that too as well, right? You agree? Yes, man. Clear that up. Now, let's go now to what it says. This one now is speaking to, this is the part of the bill that even Malahoo Fort had problem with. And remember, Malahoo Fort is not just a lawyer. She was a former RM judge. Yes, man. So she know a thing or two. And she never liked the use of the word anything. Well, let us read what it says. Now we kind of cover up which part of the section this is. It is section 4 of NARA, subsection 3, and it says, for the purpose of performing its functions under this act, the authority may, subject to any regulations made hereunder, do anything and enter into any transaction which, in the opinion of the authority, is necessary to ensure the performance of its functions. The words are limiting again. Yes, it says anything, and it says any transaction, but it says that it must ensure the performance of its functions. So they can't go decide, so they must go take the money and go and buy the Mona Lisa or take a trip to Egypt to go look on the pyramids or anything of that nature, right? Because that don't have nothing to do with the performance of them functions. All that is happening, it is that they are assuming, the legal draftsmen, and perhaps by the drafting instructions from the Prime Minister, them leaving it open so that just in case them not think of something and them have a problem, them can just do it without having to come back to Parliament to get any, affirmative. Because of course it's all in the performance, the performance of the authority. And that is what Parliament want them to do. They want them to perform, do well, and succeed. Right? Good. Now, let us see now if there is anything in the um, Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015 that is comparable. We're looking now at section 5, subsection 2. Beg your pardon. Let me correct that. It is actually subsection 5. Sorry, let me start again. It's actually section 5, subsection 3. So subsection 2 is not correct. It's subsection 3, right? And it says, for the purpose of discharging its functions under this act, the office, which is ODPEM, may, subject to the provisions of this act, do such things and enter into such transactions which, in the opinion of the office, are necessary or expedient to ensure the proper performance of its functions. Now, beg your pardon. You heard that. It says, for the purpose of discharging its functions, all the functions that ODPEM has to carry out under the law, under the act, right? Ooh, I am having a problem with energy. Whoa, and I'm far away. Now it says, so under the act, in order to discharge the functions that is given under the act, the office may, subject to the provisions, right, of the act, do such things, such things. Isn't that the same as saying anything? Such things, and enter into such transactions which, in the opinion of the office, are necessary or expedient to ensure the proper performance of its functions. Now, when you look back at the NARA bill, it says that there are regulations. It says, for the purpose of performing its functions under this act, the authority may, subject to any regulations made hereunder. So when the regulations are made, if there are, it may even limit or state in what way it is that the authority, it may limit, um, anything may mean something else. It may limit it in that instance. But as you can see from the Disaster Risk Management Act, there is no regulations that is referred to here. But they can do such things and enter into such transactions if that is going to improve the performance. So what was Mark Goling creating all this excitement about? What was everybody creating excitement about? Because the language was a bit different from what they used to. It says anything, right? And they didn't like that. It's too wide. But isn't this wide? Isn't this wide? It says do such things and enter into such transactions. What transactions? What things? It never said. It's wide. But this is legalistic language, while the other one is not so legalistic. And that is what is causing for them confusion. Right? So, again, this is an act that was passed in 2015. Mark Goling was the Minister of Justice at the time, and he went claims of him at this. Yes. Now, let's see what is next. Now, I want to beg your pardon. Let me go for the charger. Yes, man, I am back. There you go. Goody. So, it won't left me hanging. Now, let me see now if I am with, I may have skipped ahead. Let's go back a bit. Good. Now, this one now says at 14, subject to the provisions of this act, every person having an official duty or being employed in the administration of this act, or who at any time has had duty or has so employed under this act, shall regard and deal with as secret and confidential all documents obtained in the course of their duties. This now is a major difference between Mark Golding's Act, the Disaster Risk Management Act of 2015, and NARA. In that act, there is no requirement for secrecy. Why there should be a requirement for secrecy, me no know, but that is what is in NARA. And that is the only thing that, with respect to what is strange and what was brought up in the House as odd, this I would say is the one that you would say is not in the other bill, right? Mark Bowley never put none of that in a him other bill except the Integrity Commission Act and maybe one or two others, right? So this one now is not in Mark Bowling's bill, and maybe the Prime Minister would like to explain to us why it is that there is a requirement for secrecy. What is the need for secrecy? Right? We just need an explanation, and then we can say, oh, we never think about that. You agree with me? Yes. Or we say, no, 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 but that don't not making any sense, Mr. Prime Minister. That should not have been in the law in the first place. Right? Yes. So we have to talk, members of food, this is him carry out, Yes, man. And we're helping him in business by, pardon me, we are. Well, yes, him carrying out with business, and our job is to assist where we can for him to carry out with business, a full business, right? I don't know if me would be so willing to help out that British tourists if the people are stupid enough to put in there, though, but I saw it go. Now, this now is the final of the comparison between the Disaster Risk Management Act that was passed in 2015 by the PNP and the NARA bill that is passed by the JLP. The acts are there. But let me say something to you now. And let me remove this. When you look at and when you think about the Disaster Risk Management Act, there is something that I noticed very odd when the disaster was going on. And I couldn't help but notice. I said, every time the Prime Minister is speaking, he kept saying, we are going to do this, or we will be doing that. Or, he kept talking about, something, and then kept saying, this is what we are going to do. And I said to myself, but this doesn't sound like we're prepared. No, sir. No, man, this doesn't sound right. The Prime Minister should have anticipated those things. I should have thought, and then come to and just implement. And then something occurred to me. Why is the Prime Minister, or why was the Prime Minister kept saying that this needs to be done and we are going to do it, or we're going to have to do this, and we're going to have to do that? You know why he was saying so? Because of the particular devastation of this hurricane. It has opened up gaps in the Disaster Risk Management Act, not provided for in the Act, right? And the funny thing about this act full a committee. Them have one committee called, let me tell you what the committee called, right? It called the Disaster Risk Management Bill, right? The Disaster Risk Management Committee. 69 smadina that the committee then. Let me see if I find it for you. Quick. Right? 69 smaddy in that the committee. Right? Now I need you to tell me if you're hearing an echo. Let me see. Let me remove myself from this frame. Give me a second. There must be an echo. All right, let me take myself out. Now, this committee has a whole heap of people in it, right? You have 69 people. You have You have, give me a second. All right, so this is Schedule 2 of the Disaster Risk Management Act. And the constitution of the National Disaster Risk Management Council. So there is a council. So you have ODPEM, and ODPEM has a board and it has a council, right? On the council, you have the prime minister who chairs it. Then you have Desmond Mackenzie, who is his deputy chair, and then you have the leader of the opposition that is in this council. You have all other ministers of government. Right now, there are 18 in all. So you have 16 more. So you add the 16. Then you have the, no echo, wonderful, thank you. Then you have the permanent secretary in the office of the prime minister and the financial secretary. Everybody and their wife upon this committee, you know. Yes, man. Then you have the permanent secretary in each other ministry. So you add 16 more, right? Actually, 17 more. Then you have the chief of staff of the Jamaica Defense Force, the police commissioner in this body. Then you have the commissioner of corrections, the commissioner of the Jamaica Fire Brigade, the president of the National Water Commission, the managing director of the Water Resources Authority, the chairman of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, that's ODPEM. Then you have the Director General of ODPEM. And then, come along. And then you have the office, well, you have the Director General of the Planning Institute, the Chief Executive Officer of National Environment and Planning, that's NEPA. Then you have the Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Public Service, yes, very important. The Executive Director of the National Solid Waste Management, yes, they have to clean up the street. And then you have the Director of Emergency Management in the Ministry of responsible for health. I don't yet know. Yes, ma'am, you only reach what? You, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Works Agency, the Chief Technical Director in the Ministry responsible for housing, the Executive Director of the Jamaica Information Service, the Chairman of the Council of Voluntary Social Services, the chairman of the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, a Mark Golding Council, I know. Mark Golding a Mark Golding Council listener. Then you have the president of the Jamaica Red Cross Society. Let me see who else. You have the Territorial Command of the Salvation Army, the chairman of the Jamaica Council of Churches, the chairman of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, the general secretaries of the major and opposition parties in Jamaica, so the general secretaries of the PNP and the JLP, the head of the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, the director of the Meteorological Office, the president of the Association of Local Government Authorities, the chief executive officer of each telecommunication provider. Let me see who else. And the director of the Earthquake Unit, University of the West Indies, the chief technical director in the ministry responsible for local government, and such other persons as the chairman, which is the prime minister, may appoint. Now, when we add them up as 69 people, and that is a minimum because the prime minister might decide that he need one and two more people with technical knowledge to come in. Now, you know what old time people say, too much rat never dig a good hole, right? This now is divided into 6. So all of these persons, there are subcommittees now, and you divide up all these people, right? And you have 6 subcommittees. So you have the what they call it, the council, the committee, yes, the council, and the council is subdivided into subcommittees, right? And it says that there are 6 of them. We're not going to go through all 6. Apart from that, you have now on the ground. You have the parish committees for the 14 parishes, right? There's a 14 parishes, so I assume, well, actually, there's a 14 municipal corporations. So that would include the municipality of Portmore. So that's 14. Then you have what is known as the zonal committee. So you have the parish committee, you have the parish committee, the municipal corporation committees, and then you have the zonal committees. The zonal committees, they're trying to get one for each division. So if they're supposed to get or have 228 zonal committees. They don't have the full amount they have. They said well over 120, which isn't doing too badly, right? Committees to kill. And yet, after Melissa struck, the poor prime minister is here telling us that yes, we're going to be doing this and we're going to be doing that. Now, all of these committees are supposed to be coordinating and informing people about, how to prepare for disaster and so on, the shelters and all of that. And most of it for the most part worked well. The question I want to ask is what happened in Westmoreland? Because in Westmoreland, you have a Westmoreland Parish Disaster Risk Management Committee. In addition, you have the Municipal Corporation Committee and you have the zonal committees. What the ADPEM said is that the person who was appointed by the mayor as the parish coordinator died. No, they didn't die, had a stroke. I want to know if they didn't have a backup plan. So the person had a stroke. Then what? They couldn't find somebody to replace her, right? With all of these committees, what happened in Westmoreland? What was the mayor and his councillors and all of those persons that are supposed to be, coordinating the effort, the clearing of the road? They did a good job with it because when I went there, the road was clear, right? But what happened to them? Why is that the MP, who is also supposed to be sitting on the parish committee, my understanding is, right? Why is it that he was there talking about not happening for them, right? No money not coming their way. When their parish is supposed to be organizing and ready for the hurricane. What happened? I wonder if you understand me. Why is it that Hanover was complaining? What happened to Hanover? Their parish coordinator did not have a stroke. What was it that happened in South St. James? Why it is that Nikisha Burchell was complaining? Didn't she also have in her constituency zonal, the divisions did not have a disaster committee? Huh? What happened in where else? In Northeast St. Elizabeth? There needs to be an explanation as to why it is that those organizations fail. Because they had to fail for the MPs to be coming out and complaining that they're not getting this and they're not getting that. Why weren't they getting? Nobody else are complaining. Well, if they even complain, them got the help that they needed. So what was the problem in Westmoreland? Now that is something that needs to be investigated by ODPEM when I have a little time. Right? Yes. Now, let me see. Let me quickly now turn to the Auditor-General. So, now the Auditor-General report. Now, this is very fine print. I don't know why it is that the Auditor-General's report is so wide. I don't know why. When it's wide like that, it's very difficult to read, right? It shouldn't be this wide in the on the website. Now, the Auditor General put out a report. She said that this report is the third in a series of audit reports intended to evaluate multiple aspects of the Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative. And then she gave the background. She went on to say, and listen good now, everybody, listen good. The audit that she conducted sought to examine whether ODPEM effectively ensured the transparency and accountability of resources received and utilized under the Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative. In addition to that, in addition to making sure, wanting to see whether or not they were transparent and whether or not they were accounting for what they received, she said, in addition to that, the audit evaluated the adequacy of internal control systems designed to prevent, what is it designed to prevent? And detect potential fraud, waste, and abuse of public resources during disaster response and recovery activities. So her audit is looking at whether or not ODPEM was transparent and whether or not they were accounting for the resources that they received and the distribution of it. And she's also looking to see whether or not they had internal controls to prevent fraud, waste, as well as the abuse of public resources. Now, she went on to say in that same executive summary, come on, what is happening? It says the audit, this is her finding now, the audit identified areas of concern. Yes, regarding utilization of the donated funds. So, remember, she looked to see if them have internal controls to manage that money. So, but she had some concern. What is this? Let me find out. As well as deficiencies in the governance of the government-directed roof restoration program. And then she go on to say the summary outlines the key deficiencies observed and presented recommendations for strengthening controls and improving overall compliance. That's the thing I like about the Auditor General. She always points out a problem, but her job is to help them to fix it. Right? Yes. Now, it says the audit acknowledges the steps ODPEM has begun to take to address the issues identified. So ODPEM has accepted what it is that she has reported, and they are trying to see how they can fix it by strengthening, whatever it is that she identified. Now let us continue. So the key findings. Financial management. ODPEM demonstrated a low utilization rate of disaster relief funds donated for Hurricane Melissa and Beryl. That is our concern. So they received the money, but they not spend it. So she did not find that there was any, what was it that she used? What words that she used? They did not find, the Auditor General, that there was any inadequacy in the internal control systems that was designed to prevent fraud, among other things. What she found was that the internal control was so damn good and not spending bloody money, right? Okay. Now, she went on to say, give me a second. This thing is taking a time to turn over. So she went on to say, however, as at that date, only $26 million has been spent. And you would have heard all of this already. But she said, in addition, amounts totaling $138 million and 101,000 US dollars from Hurricane Beryl cash donations remain unspent. Now, there's a strong possibility that what could have happened, because when you put out an appeal, money is coming, and monies may come in, and it may come in even after the time when you need it. People just say, all right, never work up a little money, 2 weeks time to send it, and maybe there was no need for the money. So the money ended up unspent. That is a possibility, right? It's a possibility that they are supposed to do something with it and they don't get the approval yet. But according to the Auditor General, from what I remember reading, that this was uncommitted money, right? The money came in and there's nothing for them to spend it on. And we're talking about burial. Money now that come in for Melissa, that now kind of tie up and then give all kinds of reasons as the reason why it tie up. But at least the money is there and people, or however it is, them intend to spend it. And the I think it was ODPEM's Director General said that them had some plans for the money, right? Waiting for approval. Now, it says there's another concern that she had, and it had to do with donated funds. Now, I'm going to need to explain this to you. Donated funds withheld by a financial services institution without a formal agreement. What is it that they're talking about? The other day when I had put up an appeal for donations so I can run around the country and go down to the country and do some investigation in Melissa and what went on down in Westmoreland. Persons donated, and there was one particular donation that PayPal decided to hold on to for 28 days. Now, you ask the question now, why? Well, let us speak and see if we can find out. We're going to rush forward and see if we can find out. Now, what happens is, it says the banks and payment processors retain a percentage of transferred funds, a practice known as rolling reserve, to protect themselves against financial liability when customers dispute charges or commit fraud. The bank is forced to reverse the transaction, and holding a portion of your funds ensures there is cash available, right, to send back the money. Sometimes people send a money, especially with them things where they might donate. And all of a sudden, they change their mind and say they want back their money for whatever reason. When that is reversed, then go back to ODPEM and take back that money from ODPEM. The thing is, if ODPEM don't have the money to give them back, they might have to wait a while. Our government here deal with. So in order to protect themselves, them retain a certain amount. It's between 5 and 15%, but maybe for whatever reason, probably because it's because of government, government take long to give out money. For whatever reason, they decide to hold on to 30% for 45 days. Now, that money could also be coming from an institution that they don't trust, right? A shaky institution. So then say, you know what? I go and wait until that money reach in a FIMI account, because what they do, they make the transaction even before they get the money. They might decide, say, me now wait, me now know about them people here, I know. Me not know about uno need to send me the money. And then give themselves 45 days. Either coming from a foreign place, right? And it's a corresponding bank, because it's US dollars, so it's more or less coming through the US. And it's a corresponding bank that is holding on to 30% of the money. And the money may be coming from all over the world, coming to government. You follow now? So them see come from somewhere, maybe Taiwan or some bank that them don't know or them don't trust, and then decide them to hold on this particular money and wait until the money actually transfer to them, and then them release it. That's how I understand how that works. So so the Auditor General was saying that there should be an agreement. I don't know what kind of agreement any bank will have with the and what the agreement would say. That's just them policy, right? And so the ODPEM said I'm going to try and get the agreement from the bank that them doing business with. Now, what else she said now? She said, so that's the donated money. She spoke now of the National Disaster Fund. And she says the fund no have no bank account. So what ODPEM was doing was mixing up that money. Remember now them have an account. And them having accounts. So they know that in this account, Melissa account, them have 10 million. And in the other account, they have 40 million. So them already know that. So when you mix up the $50 million in the same account, it can be accounted for. But that's not how it's supposed to be done. Anyway, them promise, so then go and get their own account, and so on and so forth. Now, ODPEM utilized the restricted bidding and single source procurement methodologies. Yes, it's an emergency, and those are the ones you'll use. You have to know that there are, everybody hearing me well, right? Yes. They happen to know that there are certain persons that is supplying, say, aggregate, right? You're going to need a whole heap of aggregate, so you don't go to no small man for him to come carry two trailer load or whatever. You go to the person that you know can supply you with the aggregate. You ask them for a quotation, they send a quotation. And then you pick between those that you send it to. You might send to 4 or 5 companies, and then you pick the one that is the best price and can send, and so then can supply you a quality stuff, quality product at the time when you want it to be supplied and you trust them. And so that was how they were operating. Now, in addition to that, they said that there is some now confusion now with it says the audit identified significant deficiencies in both delivery acknowledgement controls and the completeness of payment documentation as detailed below. Now, when the Auditor General use them language and people don't understand too well, they get frightened and alarmed and say, "Ooh, is it wrong, yes, sir?" Listen to what happened and listen to the wording that she used. She says delivery verification deficiencies, delivery verification. So after you send your purchase order to the company for the supply of the material at the price that they quoted, when the material is delivered, you're supposed to have a receiver note. I said it before, you have a receiver note, and then you sign that you receive it, and you tick off what you receive and say what condition you found it in. Some people don't use the receiver note, they use the invoice that it was delivered to them, and then them sign and tick off, and then take a copy and go about their business. So this is what you're saying now. Delivery verification deficiencies. So it's a delivery. Listen, of the $122.5 million in building supplies delivered to the JDF locations. So she said it was delivered. That was exactly what the ODPEM Director General was saying, that these are items that were delivered. She said it. Only $88.6 million was formally acknowledged as being received by the JDF. So them in a rush, them sign off on some of them did not sign off on, but it was delivered. So what she's saying is when it comes to accounting, because this is how accounts work, you must have your paperwork and your ducks them lined up in a row. And they did not apparently sign off on all of the delivery notes, but the items were received. So she was only criticizing them for not always following the accounting principle. She's not saying anything is missing. And even though it may sound like, no big deal, no, it's a big deal. You must always have paperwork, always. So the JDF, of course, will have to deal with that. So that is more or less what you were saying. So no money was missing, no abuse of the government processes, and there was no wastage. And with all the amount of money and goods that they handled, I think we should congratulate the Jamaica Defense Force. They were the ones that handled the items coming through the port, and the ODPEM and the parish coordinators and all those persons, and the cleaning of the road, man, that was quick. That was excellent. That had to be the community at community level. National Works Agency, they all pulled together and did them stuff. A whole heap of committee, but it worked. What happened in Westmoreland, the land city mayor must explain him and him MPs what happening, why them fail, right? And maybe we should look into that. So that is all I have for you today. I hope you found the program interesting. I hope I didn't bore you to death. Let me see if you're bored. Oh, 676 persons over here. Oh, my goodness, thank you very much. And I see Lola and D Jones. Hi, D Jones. And Max D. Man, welcome. I've never seen you before. And then there's a Diane Crawford and Donovan Phillips. Yes, man, me and him watch the Iran excitement. And there is Ranger at Work and Wife Style. Hi, Wife Style. Yes, man. The government spent $67 billion. It will come around. It will come around. They have to take them time, right? Because they need to verify stuff. And as I started to say before, the mere fact that the Prime Minister has to be talking about what them plan to do and what them going to do next is suggesting that the act is inadequate. So they're going to have to amend the act. And Mr. Prime Minister, if you find that you have to be, if you find that the act itself is inadequate to to enable you to carry out the functions, because that's the only reason why you'll be saying, what we are going to do and so on, because the act does not provide. And the act which is restricting, this is a restricting act, the NARA Act is not so restricting. This is restricting, right? The Disaster Risk Management Act. And so you need to go into the act and fix it, make it a little, workable. And you all did a wonderful job. I'm sure the people in Westmoreland, in Trelawney, and parts of St. Anne are very grateful. And for the hard work of JPS, I still have some ideas to do with JPS that will ensure that them system go back up faster. I don't hear from anybody yet, but everybody busy, and I'm a patient person like you. Yes, man. And therefore, I want to thank everyone for joining me. So let me come back on. Let me make you see me face before me go. Yes, man. So let me thank you all for joining me today. Let me know in the comment section what you think and your own views on the matter, and what you think about Mark Golding's lapse, memory lapses. You think he had a memory lapse? I think it's memory lapse, because he could not know that this is ordinary law that is in NARA and creating all this excitement. He had memory lapses. And we want to know, why is it that he's having these memory lapses? We suspect that there is something wrong with him. He has a medical condition, which they're not telling us. And if he's having these memory lapses, it clearly suggests that he's not fit. You're not fit to be a prime minister where the job is pressurizing. I mean, nothing to do no more than chat. But what happened if the people were stupid enough to put you in September? You could manage all them something here, right? Anyway, so let me sign off. Thank you so much for joining me, for sharing, subscribing, and please remember to share, right? Yes, man, you need to share. Subscribe and leave in your comments in the comment section. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good.